Chances are, when you hear the word Sheffield, you picture something like this: fire, smoke, the constant clang of hammers on steel, right? The workshop of the world, all dark and gritty. But what if I told you the reality today is this: a city packed with forests, carved by rivers, and buzzing with creativity? So how did one become the other? Well, that's what we're here to find out. And trust me, it's one of the most amazing city transformations you'll ever come across.
So that's the big question, isn't it? How did a city that was literally nicknamed the Black City back in the Victorian era, a place that was the very symbol of industrial pollution, how did it completely flip the script and become a leader in green space? Well, the answer is an incredible story of geology, genius, collapse, and in the end, unbelievable resilience.
You know, to really get Sheffield, we have to go back, and I mean way back, before the first forge was ever lit, before the first person even settled there. We have to go back to the moment the Earth itself basically decided that this little valley in northern England was going to be something special. This is the story of the raw ingredients that sparked a global revolution.
And that is not an exaggeration. I mean, that is literally true. Back in what they call the Carboniferous period, this one specific spot on the planet basically hit the geological jackpot. The city's destiny wasn't some historical accident, it was physically buried right under its feet, like a perfect recipe just waiting to be discovered.
See, the magic here wasn't just one of these things. Lots of places had coal, others had iron, but to have all four essential ingredients all in the same place, that's just unheard of. You had the coal to make the fire hot, the ironstone to make the metal, the perfect kind of stone for sharpening blades, and to top it all off, 5 powerful rivers tumbling down from the hills to provide free, natural energy. It was a perfect storm for making things.
And people figured this out really, really early. Just listen to this quote. It's from Chaucer's Canterbury Tales, written over 600 years ago. It mentions a character carrying a Sheffield thwiddle, that's just an old word for a knife, in his sock. Think about that for a second. In the 1300s, Sheffield was already a famous brand, a name you could trust for a quality blade. That's how deep this city's roots in craftsmanship really go.
So you've got this local reputation for making great knives. But how does that explode into, total global dominance? Well, now we're rocketing into the Industrial Revolution, a time when Sheffield's small workshops become the engine room for the entire planet, hammering out the future in a blaze of white-hot steel.
For almost 200 years, Sheffield was basically the Silicon Valley of steel. It wasn't just one invention, it was this non-stop chain reaction of genius. First, a guy named Huntsman gave the world precision steel. Then Bessemer gave it massive scale. And finally, Brearley came along and gave it permanence. Each one of these discoveries completely changed the world.
You know, the story goes that Benjamin Huntsman was just a clockmaker who was getting really frustrated because he couldn't find steel good enough for his clock springs. So what did he do? He just invented his own. His crucible steel was the first time anyone had made truly high-quality, perfectly uniform steel. And here's the crucial part. The entire Industrial Revolution, all the engines, all the machines, all the factories, was built with tools made from this Sheffield invention.
But, and this is a huge but, all this incredible progress came at a staggering human cost. Victorian Sheffield was a city of brutal, shocking contrasts. You had steel barons building these enormous mansions up in the clean air of the Western Hills, while the actual workers who made them rich were packed into smoke-choked slums down in the east. It was so bad that many of the grinders, the men who sharpened the world's blades, died before they were even 30 from breathing in all the metal and stone dust.
So, like any fire, it couldn't burn that hot forever. Every fire has to be quenched. And for Sheffield, the end of its industrial reign wasn't a slow fade. It was a sudden, cold shock. This was the city's breaking point. The moment the noise stopped, and a completely new, totally unexpected sound began to rise from the silence.
Let that sink in for a minute. During World War II, Sheffield was a top target for German bombers, and its city center was basically flattened. But if you talk to many of the people who lived through both, they'll tell you that the economic collapse of the 1980s was even worse. See, bombs destroy buildings, right? But the slump, it destroyed a whole identity, a whole way of life.
I mean, just try to imagine the silence. For centuries, the Don Valley had roared with the sound of thousands of forges. It was the city's literal heartbeat. And then, in just a few short years, it stopped. Tens of thousands of jobs were just gone. And Sheffield was left with this profound question. What is a steel city when all the steel is gone? And yet, out of that quiet, a brand new noise started to bubble up from the old, derelict warehouses. It was the cold, electronic pulse of synthesizers. Bands like the Human League and Cabaret Voltaire created this sound that perfectly mirrored the industrial rhythm of the city they had lost. And later, you get bands like Pulp and the Arctic Monkeys, who took Sheffield's sharp-witted stories to the entire world. It's like music gave the city a new voice, right when its old one had been silenced.
And that brings us to today, the final act of our story, because a city that had been through the fire of industry and the cold shock of collapse didn't break. It emerged reborn, tougher, smarter, and, against all odds, greener. This is the story of the modern, resilient Sheffield. All right, so after everything you've just heard about the smoke, the fire, the industry, what do you think is the single most surprising fact about Sheffield today? Just take a guess, because I guarantee the answer is going to completely flip how you see this city.
4.5 million. That's the estimated number of trees in Sheffield. It has more trees for every person than any other city in Europe. Get this, a third of the entire city is actually inside a national park. The rivers that once powered industry are now clean wildlife corridors. The Black City is now officially the outdoor city, a magnet for climbers, hikers, and mountain bikers. It's an unbelievable transformation.
So how on earth did that happen? Well, as the old heavy industry died out, the city's 2 universities exploded, creating this huge new knowledge-based economy. And this image tells the story perfectly. On the very same site as a famous bitter miners' strike, the city built the Advanced Manufacturing Research Centre. So Sheffield didn't stop making things, it just started making them at the molecular level, developing these incredible super strong materials for companies like McLaren and Boeing.
And you know what's cool? The past is never really forgotten, it's just woven into the fabric of the present. Every single year, millions of people around the world tune in to watch the World Snooker Championship at the Crucible Theatre. And that name, the Crucible, it's a direct callback, a nod to those little clay pots Benjamin Huntsman used to invent modern steel. The city's heritage is always there, giving strength to its new identity.
Okay, so we've talked about the geology, the industry, the rebirth, but what about the people? A history like this, of fire, of grit, of collapse, of reinvention, it has to forge a pretty unique kind of character, right? To really understand Sheffield today, you have to understand the spirit that was created on this incredible journey.
There is this local saying that just captures the city's vibe perfectly. Even though it's a huge city, it feels small. People are famously down-to-earth, straightforward, and not at all impressed by flashy stuff. It's a place with this deep sense of community and a real let's-just-get-on-with-it attitude. It's a spirit that was forged in workshops where you were judged by the quality of your work, not by how much money you had.
And you can even get a taste of this spirit. The city has this almost cult-like devotion to a local sauce called Henderson's Relish. It's a massive symbol of their fierce independence. And today, its food scene, a lot of which is tucked away in old converted factories, is one of the best in the UK. The food is honest, it's inventive, and it's got zero pretension, just like the city itself.
In all of this whole incredible journey brings us to the most perfect metaphor for the entire story. And of course, it comes from the world of making steel. It's a process called tempering. What you do is you heat steel up to an incredibly high temperature, and then you plunge it into cold water. Now that shock, it doesn't make it weaker, it actually makes the steel harder, tougher, and much less likely to break under pressure.
And that right there is the story of Sheffield. The city was heated in the intense fires of the Industrial Revolution, then plunged into the cold, shocking water of deindustrialization. But it didn't shatter, it emerged tempered, a city that is stronger, more resilient, and sharper than it has ever been before, with a character that is, quite literally, as true as steel.
So that leaves us with one last question to chew on. Sheffield's story really forces you to ask, what is a city's true strength? Is it the power of its industry, the physical things it makes and sells to the world? Or is it something much deeper? Its ability to take a punch, to adapt, to survive, and to completely remake itself for a new world. Sheffield's answer is forged into its very soul.